Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to tackle one of the most common tasks in designing, that is removing the background. Now, there are 1,000 different ways to remove a background in Photoshop, but today let me show you how I do it. One of my regular jobs involve constantly removing backgrounds, and I must say 9 out of 10 times this particular technique does a really good job. So without further ado, let's dive right in. First, let's go to layer panel and duplicate the layer. I do this because it allows me to compare my work with the original one. Then let's go and rename our layer. Let's rename it as subject. It's a very simple and useful technique, especially when you get into more complex works in the future. So as you all know, when you're removing a background, working with the hair is the most difficult part. So that's why I find working with channels very handy in this kind of situation. So we'll go through each channel, red, green, and blue, and see which channel can give us the maximum contrast between the subject and our background. Here, I think the blue one does a really good job. So we can just drag and drop here. That way we have a duplicate channel. And now let's zoom in a bit. Okay, now we'll hit Command L on Mac, or if you're using Windows, that's Control L to open the level control. So here we have the black point and the white point. We'll drag the black point slightly to the right. As you can see here, the hair is starting to get darker. Now we don't want to do too much, because if we do so, the background will also start getting darker, and we don't want that to happen. Maybe this is enough. Next, let's drag the white point towards the left. Again, let's not do too much, because as you can see here, we start losing the details. Maybe this is enough. What do you think? I think this is enough. So once you're happy with this, then you can hit OK. All right, that's it. Now we're going to make a selection. To do that, if you're using Mac, hold Command. If you're using Windows, hold Control and then click on the mask, and it will have a selection. So this technique actually selects only the white part and leaves the black, but for us, our subject is the black area, so we need to invert the selection. To do that, let's hit Shift Command I on Mac. If you're using Windows, it's Shift Control I. Now let's go back to layer panel and click on the thumbnail of the layer and create a mask. Now we don't see anything right now, but let's go and add a background, maybe a solid color. There you go. So let's maybe do this gray. Hit OK. There you go. We have something now. It's not perfect, but it's a good start. Now let's get into the mask. To do that, on Mac, hold Option and click, or if you're using Windows, it's Alt plus click. So this is our mask. So once we get here, I usually prefer using the burn tool, which you can find it on the left hand side of your screen. So once you have the selection, make sure the hardness is 0 and the range is shadow. Now this is very important, because if you have the range at highlight, then when you paint, the white areas will be affected. But if you choose shadow, then the dark areas will be affected, which is what we want. And I like to keep the exposure low at 10. And let's start painting the edge of the hair. As you can see here, it retains the detail of the hair, but removes the background. Let's keep painting. This is great. So let's focus on the hair for now, because areas further away from the subject, that's the easiest part. We'll worry about that later. I have also seen some people use another technique which is equally good. Instead of using the burn tool, they use the brush. So if you're using brush, make sure your blend mode is overlay and not normal. And let's change the flow to maybe 10% and make sure the hardness is 0 and the foreground color should be black. So let's start painting. Maybe this is a bit too much. Let's change the opacity to maybe 50%. Let's paint again. Yep, this is subtle and very effective. Look at this. This is a really good technique. Okay, let's keep painting. Maybe some here and some here. Now, as you keep painting, you might notice that you are losing some details here and there, but these are very minor and I don't think you should be too worried about that. Let's paint some over here. But to be honest, this area is very easy. I think we can handle this later. What's important right now is the hair. All right, let's keep going. We're almost there. I think this is good enough for now. Let's right click on the mask and disable it. Let's click on the thumbnail of our layer and select Object Selection Tool and click on Select Subject. Let's give it a moment to make a selection. There you go, we have the selection. Now let's get into the mask. That is Option plus click on Mac or Alt plus click on Windows. Now let's choose the brush. Make sure the opacity is 100. Flow should be 100 as well. And let's change back the blend mode to normal. Now let's make sure that our foreground color is white, because we're going to start painting the selection white, which is our subject. Now I would try to avoid painting the edges of the hair, because normally the auto selection doesn't do a great job when it comes to hair, and it pulls the background as well. But if it's the body, then let's go for it. Let's keep painting. Like I said, when it comes to the body, should be all right. I think that's it. Maybe a little bit here. Some here. That should be all right. Now let's invert the selection. That's Shift Command I on Mac or Shift Control I on Windows. Let's make sure our foreground color is black. And we start painting the black area. That's the background. So as you can see, if the area is further away from the subject, or rather further away from the hair, that's the easiest part. We don't need to worry too much. Yep, I think that's it. I'm pretty much happy. Let's click on the thumbnail and see what we have. There you go. All right, we still see the halo from the previous background, but there's a way to remove that. And to do it, let's create a hue and saturation layer. And let's create a clipping mask. So to create a clipping mask, on Mac, you hold the Option. On Windows, you hold the Alt. And in between the two layers, you just click. Or what you can also do is you can right click on the layer and then create clipping mask. Now let's go to the properties panel, and then we click on the small hand. That will allow us to pick the color, which in turn allows us to select our target range. So let's select this one. Okay, maybe this one. All right, so let's see what we have selected. We'll drag the sliders to the extreme end. As you can see, the red ones are what we have selected. So if you want to increase your range, you can play around with the slider here. I can drag this, and that is too much. Let's go back. There you go. I think that is enough. All right, so now let's desaturate the hair. There you go. But this is not the hair color that we want, but we have actually now removed the halo from the previous background. Now let's go back to layer, create a new layer, clipping mask again, and let's rename this hair color. So let's select the brush. Now if you hold the Option key on Mac or Alt on Windows, it'll give us the eyedropper to pick a color. Let's pick the color from the hair, maybe this one, or rather this one. Okay, let's change this blend mode to color because we just want the color. It's not too bad. This is not the final color we want, but it's a good start. Okay, let's create another layer. Clipping mask, change the mode to color, and manually pick a color because the previous one was a bit desaturated. Let's try this one. Okay. Nope, that's too much. Go back. Let's try maybe this one. There you go. I think this one works fine. Yep. Some more over here. That is it. Let's reduce the fill a little bit. And this is what we have before and after. Let's try to change the background color to see how it works. There you go. I think this works pretty well. There you go. And if we zoom in, let's check the hair. Look at the details. We got almost everything there. Okay, now let's try adding a background. File, place embedded, and choose an image. There you go. So I'm gonna scale it to match our subject. I think that works. Let's add some Gaussian blur to our background to make it more interesting. reduce the radius. Yeah, should work. There you go. Look at this. I mean, the hair, it looks really, really good. But if you get towards the body, you can notice that the edges are really sharp, but there's a way to fix it. I like using the light wrap technique. So you can duplicate the background layer, and let's rename this as light wrap. Let's place it in front, but it has to be clipped. So let's create a mask. Now hold on the command or control key and click on our subject mask, and we have a selection here. Now let's click on the mask of our light wrap layer and go to select, modify, contract. Now we will reduce the size by maybe 2 pixels because we want it slightly smaller than our subject. Now let's change our background color to black, and if you're using Mac, it's Command plus Delete, or if you're using Windows, it's Control plus Backspace to fill up the background color on the selection that we have made. So now with the mask on the light wrap layer still selected, we will go to the properties panel and increase the feather to maybe 2 pixels. Okay, once that's done, let's go to layer and change the blending mode to overlay. And there you go. This is before, after. So as you can see, the edges have become a little bit softer. And that is how it is done. Let's group this. Rename this as edited. This is before and after. There you go, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and learned a new way to tackle hair selection. I'll be uploading more videos like this, so if you found this helpful, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. See you next time.